All right. Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the first ever live stream on the World of Momos podcast. I think so. It has gone live. We are here with Pete North. I'm just going
Right.
to check if it has gone live on. Why it says so? I think so. It's gone live. Who knows? Who knows? We'll find.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's looking live. I'm just seeing your face on the old Twitter, so there we go.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. So we are live. So we are going to talk today about what are we going to talk about? About immigration, an adult conversation about immigration without, either party getting emotional, as it usually happens. People come on their own personal agendas and they just don't talk like adults about immigration. So we're going to talk about immigration and how to tackle immigration within policies, sensible policies and stuff. And also we're going to talk about what is the way forward for the West, and also what is the way forward for having an actual conservative party in this country, because we don't have it. Actual conservative party who is influential in the politics and can change things in this country for the better, because everyone is either far left or liberal. It's all on one side. It's nothing on the other side. So hi there, Pete. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So let's kick off. Let's kick off with immigration. What do you think? What do you think is the problem with immigration?
Oh, where to start?
Simple question.
Yeah, well, it's well, for starters, you can't really address immigration without breaking it down into its constituent parts and where it presents a problem. But in our advanced state of dysfunction, it's a problem everywhere you look at it. Because I was seeing a report in the Guardian yesterday that said foreign care workers are being horribly abused.
Hmm.
And this is a strand of society. And actually, this is a theme I'm going to get into. That immigration, though it's a problem, it's a secondary problem. It's a symptom of a broader dysfunction in society. Because if you look at the care sector, it's
Hmm.
something that we, as a country, do not value. We push our elderly into these conveyor belt homes, which are staffed by the cheapest available labour, who are easy to exploit. And they're not actually coming in here to work as care professionals. They've just identified it as a backdoor to the immigration system, which they can then bring in their dependents. And so the system is being abused by all sides. Families don't want the expense because they want to inherit all that money from their elderly parents. So we push that expense onto the council. And then the care home operators, they want to make money, they want profit, so they want the cheap imported labour, and the imported labour wants the British passport. So it's a
Hmm.
wholly parasitic system that is born of a dysfunctionality. So if you want to fix that, you've got to start thinking about our inherent attitudes to elderly care and adult social care. And how do we even begin to fix that? And that's something I've been looking at in my manifesto project, which I
Hmm.
won't go into too much. But these are separate strands, and then you look at universities. All right, so we've got huge numbers of foreign students coming in, but that isn't the issue. It's not like you could come to the office and come into office and say, right, we're just going to restrict the number of visas. No, this is a systemic problem where foreign students are being used to prop up the profit margins and the viability of higher educational establishments and universities that shouldn't actually exist.
Yeah.
This is a conveyor belt system that is eroding the value of qualifications, debasing the very notion of having a doctorate. I mean, if there's one thing Twitter and X has proved in the last 15 years, is that having PhD after your name is no indicator of the capacity for independent thought and critical thinking. And in fact, we have some remarkably stupid people with
Mm.
PhDs. And when you look into it, they're actually impossible to fail. If you want it bad enough, they will tell you what you need to do in order to pass. And in some circumstances, because they're so heavily reliant on the income from foreigners doing PhDs, the rumours that I've heard is you've actually got supervisors stepping in and on the instruction of management saying you finish it for them if you need to. So the whole system is corrupted. And then you come on to illegal immigration, and I believe I mentioned this last time I was on your program.
Yeah.
You have a whole uh, a whole invasion, if you like, of illegal immigrants, and though there are various incentives. The main reason they come here is because they've got next to zero chance of being caught, and that is because we have degraded all the local government mechanisms by which it used to be detected. Talk to anybody about the state of the current high street. They'll say it's vape shops, phone repair shops, Turkish barbers. They never got any customers. How are they in
Yeah.
business? Well, we all know the reasons. Money laundering, drugs, and where you find that, you find organised crime. The police know where this is. The police know the Albanian gangs are in control
Mm.
of the marijuana market across South Yorkshire and Lancashire. They know how to find it, but there is just a complete absence of political will. And because, and even that is a wider dysfunction, because you've got more and more people clamoring onto the social welfare system. And we see this with more and more people being signed off with autism spectrum disorder or ADHD. We've got people who are just basically tuning out of the working world and into the welfare system. And it's this that's creating more and more demands on the welfare state, and so we are seeing councils spending 40% or more just on adult social care and welfare and housing. These are not things that the state should be doing. The things that the state should be doing at the most basic level is creating the conditions in which people's daily activities can happen unobstructed. When you look at the origin of local authorities, they were local sanitation authorities. They dealt with
Yeah.
water, they dealt with drains, disease prevention, and then moving into emptying the bins and fixing the roads, allowing people to go about their business. But the more you bloat and widen the entitlement to welfare, the more you find local governments doing more of what they shouldn't do and less of what they should. So the basics of government are breaking down. So we're not detecting illegal immigration, and we're not capable of deporting it because we've got all these different human rights entitlements, ECHR, and all that. But of course, you've also got again a complete absence of will, and this is where the SDP. I went to a New Culture Forum meeting a couple of
Mm.
weeks ago featuring the leader William Clouston. He's a really switched on guy, and the thing he's pushing is ending the age of indifference, and this is the core problem. You have a political class
Mm.
that simply is unaware of the problems, and insofar as it is aware,
Mm.
just doesn't care. It
Yeah.
doesn't care about deindustrialization. It doesn't care about immigration.
Hmm.
And insofar as it does care about the rising sectarianism we're seeing in our politics and the threat of Islamism, that they might care, but not to the extent that they will actually do something about it. Um, because they know if they plough in, not only are they going to face pushback from Muslims whose votes they
Hmm.
depend on, they're going to get the whole lefty liberal media
Yeah.
heaping on them, calling them racist. Nobody's going to touch this with a barge pole. So you're talking about political cowardice. The collapse of political will, the collapse of moral authority in government, um, the general collapse of the administrative state, and the symptom of that is then mass immigration. And you've got policy thinkers who, any policy strand you look at housing, you look at health, and they say, oh, well, the chief concern is that we have an aging population, so we need this immigration. So, uh, though you've got your crackpot conspiracy theories about the great replacement theory, it's actually an official policy among liberal policymakers that, oh, we haven't got enough young people, let's import them and their dependents. So it is a neoliberal policy of replacement rather than looking at the questions of how do we, why is it that people are not having kids? Why are people not getting married? Why are families breaking down? Why are communities breaking down? Why are the bonds that create a viable society collapsing? And these are complex, multi-threaded questions that are just simply beyond the intellect of our ruling class. I mean, it was bad under the Tories. You got some pretty mediocre politicians there. But under Starmer's Labour, we have some of the lowest capability, lowest IQ politicians that democracy has ever seen. Not just
Hmm.
in this country, but we are talking third world, African tin pot dictatorship levels of
Yeah.
governmental ignorance without the
Hmm.
first idea how systems work. And this is not just on the left, because you have a look at the manifestos that party politics produces, and they're all garbage.
Hmm.
You got, and I know I keep heaping on reform, but they say, oh yeah, we'll stop immigration. But if you asked any of these people, how would you actually do it? Where would you attack it? They wouldn't have the first clue. And if you put them in office, they'd have no more idea how to do it. Yeah,
No, but
they might
that's
turn
the
back
that's
the
the thing,
boat.
Pete. Like, because the thing is, for a very long time now, the entry level of the people getting in, the standards have been lowered for a very long time now. So they didn't have to do this. They were just managers. They were just managing things.
Hmm.
They didn't have to innovate anything into this field of policy or stuff like that. And if any think tank, big think tank that would have been okayed by someone like Blair, or someone they thought was amazing, they would just take on their policies. They didn't have to think, right? So they were
Hmm.
just managing. They were taking things, and there was like, oh, and anyone, and this is not just the within the parliament. There's all forms of government, all forms of governmental leadership. Anyone that comes in that has an innovative idea, or sees the actual problem for what it is and wants to fix them, well, that's a lot of work, and that shows up the leadership for their incompetence. So they don't want it. They are like, no, but there's a already a party agreed idea from a approved think tank, from a approved provider that provides a service and stuff like that. So we'll just keep on commissioning that same thing, and
Yeah.
and just get on with the plan, because then we can all defer to the plan rather than having to take bold and risky decisions ourselves. And this is where I have a problem with all the political parties, reform included, because I don't think so they have actually understood what is conservatism. or are conservatives, they are also a branch of liberals. So they won't go as far as well. And this is the problem actually. If you remember a long time ago, the first time that we talked, right, you had reservations about SDP, right? Those
More than ever
reservations
now.
those reservations have come in my head as well, and I have actually left the party as a member 2 3 weeks ago. It was
Mm.
actually something that you said, and it was like in my head all the time, but it was very simply put by my wife when she asked me, like, why are you with SDP? I was like, you know what, they have a good policy, they think about everything, they're intellectuals in the party, and they're forward thinking and stuff. But she said, but they're still lefty, aren't they? They're still on the
Basically,
left, aren't they?
I
I
am
was like,
not a
yeah.
social democrat,
Yeah.
and I do
Yeah,
like these guys.
exactly.
William is a really
Yeah.
sound guy, and if I want a new party in politics on the right, he's the guy I want in
Yes.
opposition. He's the
Yeah.
thinking, loyal, intelligent
Hmm.
opposition that we need. But
But
it
it's an
isn't my view.
opposition. I want them as this is what I understood. It's like I like him a lot.
Yeah,
I've talked with him a lot. I like him a lot. I like a lot of the people in there. But by the end of the day, they are in opposition, right?
yeah,
So,
but
and not
it,
me. This is not true to me. So I'm not being true to myself. I'm not actually being true to them. So I need to find my party, which is the Conservative Party, which we don't have.
yeah.
Which we don't have. We have in the fringes maybe, or there's potential of some parties, or there's potential that maybe some parties come together and form a new idea, which means if smaller parties like let's say like UKIP, Britain First, Heritage, these parties, if they come together, you know what happens when they come together? They'll have to rebrand themselves, right? And by rebranding themselves, they will be able to leave their baggage, right?
Mm.
UKIP will finally be able to leave their baggage of Farage and stuff like that. And
Well,
then
the thing
there's
is,
an opportunity to form a new manifesto, which like something like you are working on, to adopt something of that sort and start from ground up. But they don't have to start from ground up then, right? Because if we wanted to start a new party, it will take too long. It will take too long to take effect 2029. But if we already have these parties which have some membership coming together, then we already have a basis to start from.
well, not really, because their memberships are in the hundreds. I think
Hmm.
I think even the bigger ones have maybe 20,000 on their
But at least for
database.
brand
And
recognition, don't you think?
um,
Having
well,
some, like, because you said like before that they are one man parties, right? So they are like mostly they are like that, like Heritage Party and
I,
Britain
d-
First and
I
stuff
just
like that.
don't favour any mergers
Okay.
or pacts. I just
Hmm.
think let them all set out their ideas, let them
Hmm.
all present who they are, and let the best one win.
Okay.
Um, and because the problem at this end of politics, when the mainstream has completely abandoned the core issues of concern, immigration is racing right to the top, but you still
Hmm.
got a timid Tory party, and to an extent, rather a timid um, Reform Party, and
Hmm.
certainly there's that same timidity within SDP. I just don't think they realise the urgency and the
Yeah.
danger
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
where we are heading.
Hmm.
But the problem is that the few people who do actually understand, they're then fishing in the crackpot end of the right, where
Yeah.
you are never very far from really quite twisted anti-Semitic conspiracy theories.
Lizard people.
You
Idea.
might not be in the same room as Nazis, but you are in the
Yeah.
same room as people who know actual Nazis with
Yeah.
swastika tattoos,
Yeah.
and you're like, I just,
Well,
it's
I feel like that they're just one or two conversation away from lizard people.
yeah, yeah,
From bringing up the lizard people conspiracy, and it's like, well, this is not um this is not helpful at all. So
yeah,
yeah, I feel like this is why I've been feeling so disjointed. This is why I actually wanted for a very long time for Tory party to get their act together, but I think so they just need to be destroyed.
yeah,
So because they're liberal democrats, so they just their party members just need to go into liberal democrats, right? If they defect right now, actually most of them, liberal democrats will become the opposition. you know.
Yeah.
But let that happen then, so that we can have a conservative party, and that can start from the core.
Well, yeah, but you've got this bed blocker called reform.
Hmm,
And for as long as reform exists, reform is part of the problem,
yeah,
because reform is an iteration of the Eurosceptic Brexit movement. It's
hmm,
just another evolution, and it's led by the same man. And Farage is a man from another time.
yeah,
He's not quite boomer, but he's late boomer. He
hmm,
belongs more to that generation than he does to mine or subsequent. Um, and his in what's missing is the fundamental sense of urgency. And just to spell this out, my thinking is that unless we can arrest the decline cycle that we are in, we're only going to see the kind of sectarianism we saw at the last general election. We're going to see that at the next general election on steroids.
yes,
And that is not divorced from the armed Islamist mobs we saw on the
yeah,
streets of Stoke during the riots. And this stuff, this imagery that we are seeing, we always imagined it was some dystopian future 20, 30 years away. There's that scene in Children of Men with the jihadists walking through the streets. We always imagine that it's a possible future, that something we can avert maybe if we wake up to it, but it's still a way off yet. Well, actually, the penny's dropped now. It's in the here and now. It's a reality. And though, you could say in mitigation, if it's put about if disinformation is put about from the likes of Hope Not Hate, that the far right are going out to destroy mosques, then, you can't blame them. I think I would turn
yeah,
out to defend my community. But still, this points to an irreparable
hmm,
schism between incompatible communities. And when you don't have anything like immigration control, and you've got an establishment that is not willing to legislate
hmm,
against what is a growing sectarianism, and other countries do, but other European countries do, Muslim countries do.
yeah,
There are Muslim countries who outlaw certain, anything that interferes with. Some Muslim countries have a secularism. They're still Muslim countries, but they are very keen on excluding the misanthropic Islamists who
yeah.
challenge the authority of the
There's
regime.
only few of them that would outright do that, but they also challenged. When push comes to shove, they're challenged by Sharia law, and they have to back down up
Mm,
to an extent. So UAE does that to a very good extent because
yeah,
they have built a business, and because most of the people, their elites, are not few elites. Their elites are many.
yeah,
Because they didn't just favor one family, like usually what happens, because you have monarchies, direct monarchies in most of these countries, Middle Eastern countries. You have a king who is mostly in favor of his family or his
yeah. It's
cousins and their
tribal.
tribes, So
But then
because
all
you,
politics is tribal.
yeah, yeah, but
We'd
because
like to think
you,
we're different, but we're
yeah,
not. We are just as tribal.
but because
Um,
UAE was not, it was more into business and stuff. It had to give out favors to everyone, right? So
yeah,
everyone, that means everyone is invested into keeping the safer running of the country without the Islamists. But it only takes few bad apples to just join it, because the thing is, like, if they'll have to deny Sharia law, they'll have to deny Sharia and say that the things that you're talking about that are in Sharia are actually illegal in this country. So Pakistan tried doing that for a very long time, till someone came in like General Zia in the 1970s, and he put in Islamism, and he took away the English common law that was in Pakistan as
mm,
Pakistan's penal code. He overrid it by Sharia law. It didn't happen straight away. It happened little by little by little, and every single case that came up was challenged on the basis of Sharia law, and the penal code had to come second. So it's sort of like there is an inherent problem within Islam, and something that they have to deal with it, right? It's not for us to deal with. For us, what is to deal with is who do we allow to come in, right? So if we bring the conversation back again to what is the inherent problem that we have with immigration, right?
Well,
So
again, this
what
is
would you say is your like issue right now, not with
well,
how it's run, but what is the outward issue that you have?
the point I'm making is that if any one of these parties got into power that actually recognized that immigration was a problem, and they were able to institute policies that would bring
Hmm.
it down to an effective moratorium for a generation, would fix nothing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because there's so much damage
Hmm.
that's already been done. So and I was thinking about this, where there's two possible approaches to this. You either recognise that British culture, British society is now irreparably maimed by immigration, and that somehow we've got to find mechanisms of governance so we can all kind of rub along together. Um, it can. I think it can be done. I hope to
But
God it can be
don't you
done.
find that depressing? I find that thought depressing. It's sort of like losing without even putting up a fight. And
Well,
I'm saying that as an immigrant, right? I'm saying that as an immigrant. It's
this
like
is the
why?
track we
Yeah.
are. This is the track we are currently on.
Hmm.
And now, as a hypothesis, for argument's sake, say we just say, right, this is what we're resigned to. You still need management policies. You still need ways that government can happen, democratic government, where there's a rule of law and everybody still has the same basic standards of conduct. To avoid friction between communities, that's a management thing. But you would still need an inherently better class of governors than our politics is presently capable of producing. So Labour just isn't up to the job.
No.
The Tories aren't up to the job. And of course, the one thing, now I keep pointing this out, is people do generally rub along together better when the economy is thriving.
Yeah.
Back in 2008, before the financial crash, we had debt credit, consumer credit bubble, but people were getting their slice of the pie, and people were rubbing along quite nicely together. Islamism was still growing; it was still a threat, but it was a manageable threat, and people were less anxious about immigration in the way that they are today. Um, if you are going to have this multi-ethnic, multicultural society that they're pushing us into, the prerequisite for that to function is a thriving economy. But that is absolutely incompatible with the sort of top-heavy, bulky welfare state,
Hmm.
along with green energy policies, net zero, things that restrict our mobility, things that drive up the cost of food. So this is what is, like I say, this future scenario that we all thought was dystopian possibility. It's in the here and now. It's only going to get worse as the economy deteriorates
Well,
because
if I can interject on that point as well. So, is the idea that the future is Star Trek, right? So that's what they were thinking. If the future is Star Trek, then everyone is thriving, right? So it's sort of like when we are in the carnival, when we are in the festival, everyone is enjoying themselves. Everyone is having a bit of nachos. We have having a bit of siesta, whatever they're doing, right? But when the carnival stops, and it's
this
time to
is it.
clean up the mess, then who cleans up the mess, right? You can't have a country that is dependent on always having a good time to be
Yeah,
able to because when the times are bad is when you need a nation. Otherwise you don't need a nation, right?
yeah.
when you are threatened and stuff, that's when you need the unity of the nation and stuff. So when we are threatened now, what's going to happen? If Iran starts attacking us tomorrow, not Iran, some more capable countries start attacking us tomorrow, right? What will happen? We'll be divided into different pockets and stuff,
Yeah.
and we'll be conquered. So what is the point then? There is no point of having a nation if the idea is just that everyone is a economic metric within the nation, and that to have a functioning, to keep people at peace, you need to keep pushing them with money and stuff. So
Hmm.
if the economy is not working, so you need to up the welfare, because if you don't up the welfare, there's people going to start striking, there's people going to start, have less jobs and stuff, so they're going to start looting, they're going to start doing this and that. There's absolutely no morals, no culture, no
Yeah.
values, unless we have some money and we can keep everyone happy, keep everyone on a drip of entertainment and stuff, and they are sedated by their, within their existence. You
And
can't
that's
run a
what.
country like that.
Yeah, well, Starmer, I think of all people, realizes this, but because he doesn't have the means or creativity or the money to keep pumping welfare, and he's already extended the credit card with his bribes of the public sector
Hmm.
workers. He's got nowhere to go now, so all he can do is crush dissent, make people fearful of expressing their opinions, thinking that if we crush dissent, this will all go away. There's no scenario where this ends well, because
No.
I have three possible scenarios. One
Oh,
is.
wait, before you go on, I just want to let people know that something happened with the YouTube thing and it never went live on YouTube. So it seems like YouTube kicked us out, but it is live on Twitter. So if you, because I have absolutely no chats over here, but if people comment on the Twitter stream, wherever it is, it should show up on mine. So keep commenting if you want to ask Pete any questions. So yeah, go on. Your three
Yeah,
things.
my three scenarios are best case scenario, we get low grade civil war, which is, but it will be on a perpetual basis, and it will look and feel a lot like Belfast in the late 70s. Soldiers on the streets,
Hmm.
IEDs, ambushes, war going on around normal life, where sort of normal
Yeah,
life continues during the day, but after hours, if you wander into the wrong neighborhood, you're dead. And there's gang
that's what
warfare
happened. Like
that's.
in a lot of places, didn't it? Like Lebanon, it happened
Yeah,
like that
yeah,
as
yeah. Well,
well.
that's
Yeah.
scenario two, Lebanon,
Mm.
where you have a state within a state,
Yeah,
and
I lived
the
in
national
Pakistan in that
government.
way as well. Like, I
Yeah,
have no
it's.
intention of reliving it.
Yeah, and of course the third scenario is just the unthinkable, which is Yugoslavia, where you just get a
Mm.
balkanization, a breakup, um, all out war, and we find you know the wealthier migrants, they'll manage to get out, they'll evacuate, but that'll just leave the dregs to fight it out between them. Bangladeshis versus Pakistanis, Indians versus Pakistanis, blacks versus anyone who wanders into their neighborhood, whites retreating to the rurals, and then pretty soon we start filling mass graves. And the only way to bring order to it is for the state to deploy the army and to just basically shoot anything that's armed. Um, and so there is just
Yeah.
no scenario where this ends well.
I think, Pete, like I think the current government has resolved to that third scenario. And this is why they have made the people that they do not want and cannot control into a group of people that will be seen in the future, if they keep on their narrative, will be seen as the ones that the army will target, which is the far right working class, right? They have
Mhm.
already done that, and they are signaling it to people. Look, these are our enemies, so you choose your side. Either you want to come on this carnival of this misaligned people, where your history, your values, and your culture is diluted to the extreme, but you live, or You go to that white working class people and you take a stand against us, and we the state are more powerful, and we will do all we can to crush you,
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly it. Yeah. And this is, this is the terrible urgency that policymakers need to be talking about. And you've got Nigel Farage, and I think he's still wedded to this net zero, one in,
Yeah.
one out idea. These bland talking points, but all the best policy in the world to address immigration simply doesn't touch the sides. When I mean, I've been looking at what's going on in Bangladesh. Very difficult to get accurate information.
Mm,
From a casual observer's perspective, it looks like an Islamist coup, but BBC Verify, which is occasionally quite good
mm,
when it's not reporting on Israel, they seem to think the situation is a lot more complicated, and that a lot of the footage we're seeing is either fake or misinterpreted captions. So we don't actually have a very, or at least I don't have a particularly good idea. But
as far as I know, it's sort of like what usually happen is a student leftist movement that overthrew for the right seeming reasons, but then have been co-opted by the Islamists because they
yeah,
have taken an opportunity. So this is what usually happens. This is why I've been warning people for the past 14 years since I've been here, that it doesn't matter what your cause is. If you have this dangerous element in your country, they will take advantage of it, right? And they are willing to do that you can't even imagine. Things that they are willing to do that you can't even imagine. We saw some of those things on the 7th of October that these people did, right?
mm,
And we have the people who are willing to join them, right? We have those over here. We have the people who join ISIS, who are sympathetic to ISIS and stuff. So no matter what cause happens, right, no matter what happens, no matter, they don't have to be aligned to the left. They are right now because there's an opportunity over there. So this is also something people need to understand, that they don't have to be aligned. They are not going by our politics. They don't care about our politics. They might ape it every now and then, show up in suits and stuff like that,
mhm.
some of their solicitors, and pretend to be playing our game of
Yeah,
politics and stuff.
exactly. Yeah.
But they're looking for an opportunity, right?
Well, what really concerns me about this now, you've heard all this furore, sort of blaming Tommy Robinson for
Yeah.
disinformation that started the
Ridiculous.
riots.
Hmm.
They're not wholly wrong about that. Certainly, I don't think Tommy Robinson himself was responsible for releasing disinformation, but one of his acolytes, David Atherton, most certainly was. He has a massive account, and he posted something that was completely fictitious on the basis of rumor and speculation. That's how he operates. And that, I believe, was a contributory factor to what happened in Southport. Now, that's an arguable point. But we do know, on the flip side, Nick Lowe's from Hope Not Hate,
Yeah.
he puts up unsubstantiated rumours about an acid attack on a Muslim. Guess what happens? Muslims take to the streets. Now, that's
And sorry,
inside.
also to add, like, David Atherton has did come out later and tried to correct himself because he found out like he was doing gave out wrong information. But
Only
Nick
because
Lowell,
Rakib Ehsan gave him a boot up the bum, and quite rightly so. Um,
Nick Lowell's never did, and he's still working with the
yeah,
government, and that's the
well,
problem.
this isn't quite my point though. My
Hmm.
point is, if disinformation can do this in a relatively managed civil sphere that we have in this country, and it can lead to riots,
Hmm.
it's only going to take one reprisal attack of Hindus against Muslims to be filmed from Bangladesh, to
Hmm.
be miscaptioned and beamed around the Muslim world. What happens in London then? What happens
Yeah.
in Whitechapel?
Yeah.
Um, we're not then talking about hitting each other with batons. We are talking about an actual
Yeah.
slaughter, a
Yeah.
massacre between different ethnic
Mm.
groups on our own streets. Now, everybody I talk to is saying, oh, well, it's just a matter of time before we have another 7/7 or another sort of Manchester bombing.
No, it will be
Um,
worse.
yeah, yeah, these things are likely, but the real present danger, and particularly, God knows what's going to happen if Lebanon gets sucked into the
Yeah.
war with Israel,
Yeah.
Pakistan perhaps against India. One of these conflicts is only a matter of time, and the crowds are not rational, and it
Mm.
will take so little for this to bleed out
Mm.
onto our streets.
But
And
though, Pete, like, one thing I do want to add is sort of like we expect too much from our side, right? We expect more from our side than our opponents in this battle of ideas and stuff as well. It's like we are expecting people, the British people, to be more accurate about what they're reporting, because we are too much adherent to the sensibilities of a group of people that are on tinderbox, right? They are ready to blow up at any moment, right? And I would
well, we do.
also
That's
say, like,
every one of us has got a an obligation to think very carefully about what information we proliferate.
no, no, no.
Not
I completely agree with that. But what I'm
as a,
saying,
as a
like, a minor point within it is sort of like we also have to understand, like, in other circumstances, let's take out the whole of the Muslim bloc away from England, right?
Mhm.
Completely take them out, right? And this information plays out between some other groups. The reaction would not be the same. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
sometimes we overlook this point, like, yeah, but why are we being taking care of the sensibilities of a group too much, a group which no matter what hates us, wants to conquer over us, and wants to destroy us. So it's sort of like we need to understand at times as well, like, yes, we all have a responsibility, and I think so we should take our responsibility very seriously, especially if we call ourselves journalists and are putting up information and stuff that should be researched and stuff. I have put out probably wrong information myself as well, but obviously a lot of people can do it unknowingly, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But
I'm sure I have. You know,
yeah,
I've retweeted videos from Bangladesh, but I
yeah.
cannot guarantee the.
Yeah, but it's
Uh,
also like we are, if we are doing it as well, people who are on this side of, like, who are pro Britain and stuff like that, a lot of people who adhere to the values of Britain as well, we are doing it not mostly consciously, right? We're doing it because we either caught up in the moment and stuff, and yeah, we should have more standards, but our intention is not malicious, right?
hmm.
On the other hand, but people like Nick Knowles or any of his other Islamist buddies and stuff like that, when they spread misinformation, it's very much intentional to create a
Oh
certain
yeah,
thing as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And he's got away with it scot free with
Mhm.
absolutely
It's
no
still
consequence
working
or
with the government.
damage. And that single act, that actually put armed Islamist mobs on the streets of Britain
Hmm.
has done irreparable, in the truest sense of the word, irreparable harm to race relations in this country.
Oh yeah.
It's never going to recover.
No.
You can put it into context and write academic papers, but the vision, the mental memory will stay with me for the rest of my
Hmm.
life, that when push comes to shove, when order becomes disorder, these people become my enemy, and not through anything I said or did. I am just basically, if I'm in their territory, when something kicks off, I'm a target in my own country.
Hmm.
And so that then marks them as a clear and
Can I put
present
this forward? Can I
danger.
put this forward as well now? Like, right? Because this was the reason why I'd been raising issues for a very long time now, right? This is the reason why I started speaking up as well, because I knew an incident like this would happen that would damage the race relations to the extreme, where people like myself will be caught in the middle, right?
Yeah, I mean, you are in danger.
on from both sides, right?
Mm.
So I become a danger from both sides, because when the problems happen on the street, right, nobody's gonna come up to me and ask me for my political views first. Oh, can you fill in this questionnaire before I kick your head in, right? So
Yeah,
that is not going to happen, right? So I am caught in the middle of it, right? So this is the reason why I was trying to raise awareness, and now we have come to that point where this cannot be resolved nicely at
yeah.
all.
I
I
mean,
think so. And the only way that I have is, like, if I have a way to make sure the innocents don't get caught up in this, is to actually make it about ideology rather than people, that and specific ideology of Islam and Islamism. Not make it about it, but actually point that out, that it's actually not all brown people, even though, like, it's gonna come up the image in people's head, but it's actually the problem of Islam, and we need to deal with Islam. So maybe in a way, it's also a good thing, because without this kick of actually, because you just we just holding the tub, like it's almost gonna spill over, we just holding it is fine. Finally it spills over and there's, like, water on the floor. So now you can deal with it. Now it's come to your reality. Now either you deal with it, because this was going to come no matter what. This was going to come no matter what, because nobody was brave enough to deal with the immigration issue about Islam. Reform, this is why I got pissed off at Reform as well, because
yeah, they
when
won't touch
when
it
was
with a
the
passport.
opportunity? They got their chairman to be a Muslim as their chairman. I was like, well, you are not serious trying to deal with this problem, because what sign does it give? When those riots happen, why did you not go as a leader of the opposition, as he keep trying to call himself? Why did you not go to those riots and try calming people down? Why did you not show leadership that Keir Starmer never did? Why did you not involve yourself? Why did you instead threw people under the bus? Start saying, oh, it's Tommy Robinson and EDL. The EDL doesn't exist. What are you doing? You're
Yeah,
just
well,
distancing yourself.
one of the things that that I have to believe that there are people within British Islam who want absolutely nothing to do with what they've seen, who are
Yeah.
as disgusted by it as I am.
Hmm.
And we hear all these, all the talk of community leaders, but these community leaders they tend to
They're
be
Islamist.
race grifting establishment
Hmm.
parasites.
Hmm.
And the
No
guy from
productive person want to be a community leader. They have
the
work to
guy
do.
from Reform, he's quite clear that he is a Muslim. Well,
Hmm.
there was an opportunity for him to say, "We are British, we are Muslims, we
Hmm.
are with you. We are not against you." And the Muslims who are out on the streets, they're not. They're not part
Yeah.
of us. They are just as much our enemy as they are yours,
Hmm.
and that would have been a tremendous opportunity to unite the country, and would have completely, ripped the narrative
Away from
out
Labour,
from
away
under
from
the
Tories,
feet of
away
the
from
left,
everyone. Yeah.
because you'd have been able to say, well, there's real leadership.
Hmm.
And there's a British Muslim who has decided that in this moment
Hmm.
being British mattered more than being a Muslim.
Yeah.
And this is what we've got to do in policy terms. We've got to put Islam on notice, and we've got to say, we understand that faith is important, and your freedom to practice it peacefully in your own private domains. Fair enough, fill your boots. But when it comes to politics and public life, though we are culturally Christian, we are a technically secular country. The
Hmm.
sectarianism we're seeing has no place in our politics, and we are going to come down hard on it. Um, we are putting you on notice. You've got to choose.
Yeah.
Are
Shape up or
you
ship out, sort
are
of a
you
thing.
British first, and then
Yeah.
a Muslim, or Muslim then British? And if it's the latter, then you're on the way out the door, because that's where policy is going to push you. Um,
But
because
I
it
don't,
would,
Pete, I don't think so. Any one of them is either knowledgeable enough or brave enough or have an
yeah,
understanding how they can implement
cowardice.
this into policy. Like, right? So what Farage was all concerned about was what his liberal buddies are going to think about him. He wanted to go on LBC and say, "Oh, you don't call me a racist. Just take that back." That's all he was concerned about, right? And that's why he did his speech and he threw Tommy Robinson under the bus. It's like, but this was an opportunity. Even if you think that Tommy Robinson is a racist, which he's not, because otherwise he wouldn't be my friend if he was racist. But even if he thought like he is extreme or whatever, this was an opportunity to bring him in, and calm the situation down.
I
If
don't
you
think
want
that
to,
man is capable of calming any
no,
situation down.
that's
Um,
that's the problem with Farage because he's just after himself, right? So
yeah,
and we have a problem with that, and this is the so.
no, I think he's actually right on that. He's kept a cordon sanitaire between reform and the Tommy Robinson Brigade, and he's right to do that in exactly the same way that there was a uh, divide between Sinn Féin and the IRA. What Tommy Robinson's got is a street movement, and it has a utility. It can have its peaceful jamborees in London, and they can make a point, and they can have a show of force, and it can be a nice, peaceful day out, and you're making a point. And it's also a very subtle message that that Tommy Robinson can say from wherever I am in the world, I don't even need to be there, and I can put thousands of people in Trafalgar Square and I can address them on the internet, or I don't even need to address them at all. But just on my order, I can put a small army on the streets. Now, how that army behaves that particular day is on the orders of the leadership, Tommy Robinson. And that's why the establishment is deathly afraid of him. Because when push comes to shove, if we do see a Islamist breakout, the kind we saw with in Stoke, but in every city on a massive scale. If Tommy Robinson then takes to the internet, goes to YouTube, X, whatever, and says, "Now's the time to turn out in force and do as you like, fill your boots, have fun." Um, he is in effect a commander. He is, and I don't know if you looked at what happened in Basra. The reason the British lost control and the insurgents, the public, the Iraqi people turned against the British army, is because the British army could not keep order, but the local strongman could, and this is how the power dynamics work. He's in Tommy Robinson. You've effectively got one of the local tribal strongmen who has authority in his own right, and he is a combatant. And so he is separate to the body politic. He is separate to the electoral process. And the moment you start merging those two worlds, you can't then have the political side leveraging, because it loses whatever moral distinction it has from the people who are taking to the streets and fighting. So I do think Farage is being very disciplined about this, and you don't want to have the two worlds mixing. They are separate movements. They are related but separate.
Okay, so obviously this is the minor point where we disagree upon. Out of the very little things that we actually do disagree upon, because I'm part of his movement, and that's what we're trying to do, merge these two, because his intention is not to be Tommy Robinson's intention is not to be the that sort of a person that
He is
actually
never
creates
going to
violence.
escape that reputation.
Yeah.
He established that reputation 20 years ago, and he will take it to his grave. And he does not actually do himself many favors when he knows the rules of the game, and he knows that if you in this country, if you assault someone, the court will take you will forgive. you can have a gentle sentence. But if the court puts down a court order that you must do something as well, and you defy the court, the one thing that British courts do not tolerate is defiance of the court, and it can be for any mundane reason. And this is something that he has consciously done at times, consciously defied court orders, and
No,
the
no, but
court had
I'm
absolutely
not like
no
in
choice but to assert its
I'm
authority.
not in disagreement in those sort of things and stuff like that. But I think like I think there's an opportunity, necessarily to not necessarily to have like Tommy Robinson in Reform Party as such, right? Because I mean, this is something that probably me and Tommy Robinson disagree upon as well. Because I like him as a journalist. I want him to be, investigative journalist and stuff because that's where he's good. Um,
Mm,
I don't necessarily want him within the politics as well. Because I don't think so is good for him. Like it restricts him to doing what he needs to be doing. And sometimes you need people like him to push the envelope every now and then to reveal something that is hidden in the underbelly, and people are being too polite to either touch it or to understand it and stuff. And he has revealed the underbelly of Islam for a very long time now, which people were very comfortable just letting it go. This is the reason why people did not um, wanted to raise that much fuss about the grooming gangs and stuff like that as well. It's not because they didn't know. They knew that these things can happen and been happening and stuff, but they just wanted to let it go because they didn't know how to deal with it. So
yeah.
people like him are instrumental and in saying like, no, you are going to deal with this, right? And if push comes to shove, right, if we have a civil war, right, it is actually the safety of British people in pockets where the government does not care about them is going to come from people like him.
Mm,
Because and this is why a lot of people support him as well. So it's not just about him, it's about the people who support him as well, to bring them under a fold of saying like, okay, we understand your concerns, right? Because this is the thing, like if we keep ignoring people's concerns, they're going to keep on bringing up people of different sorts, and the next person who might come in might not have lived or grown up in a multicultural environment, and would actually be a proper far right and not be a Tommy Robinson, right? And they would most definitely raise want to go towards a race riot and stuff. And this is something as well that is at the gate, right? Because if he walks out, right, Tommy Robinson right now, there's a lot of people who are disjointed, which are not going towards Reform Party. And I fear they will go towards a person that is actually a proper far right person, and that can galvanize people in that way. And that can, when push comes to shove, which might happen pretty soon, if the Labour Party keeps on going the way that it's going, is going to create a huge amount of problem. What I'm saying is like, r- we need to address the main issues in this country, right? Rather than going after the symptoms. Everyone, like, these things are symptoms. Farage is a symptom. Tommy Robinson is a symptom of what has happened. The Islamists in the country are a symptom of what has been happening and stuff. The people who are disjointed, the liberal elites, are a symptom as well. But what is at the core of it? At the core of the problem that we have, as far as I see it, is a disconnection of public, government, and the monarchy, right? So the monarchy is where we're supposed to get the set our culture and values and traditions, right? Because that's a way that has kept our traditions for a very long time, and has changed traditions as well when the monarchy changed, right? Like that's how we got the Church of England and stuff over here. there's a it didn't used to be that disjointed, right? The kings and the monarchs were not that disjointed from the politics. It has
yeah.
become, since Queen Elizabeth, it has become way too disjointed. And we might say she was the best queen, but in my view she might have done more damage by keeping that much distance, right? The other thing is that the politics is not in the sphere of anyone. Like, they're in their own pocket. They're in the metropolitan pocket, and that's where our politics is done. And that's where we are also showing the world that that is England, that metropolitan area. That's why when we see on the ads and stuff like that, is represented by these different ethnicities rather than the English
Yeah.
ethnicity, right? Because that is England now. To people, like the way that the ghetto black people speak in the pockets of London, that is supposed to be an English dialect, when it is not. It's not even
Yeah,
proper
totally agree.
English, right? And
Mm.
then you have the public who doesn't know anymore, who's just like, who's just filling themselves with heroin, basically heroin of entertainment and silly things, and like whatever, like they're trying to numb themselves constantly because they are that detached from it, right? So what used to happen before was all of these elements would be tied together by religion, by church,
Yes.
right?
Mm.
When we have lost that complete sense of it, even to a point now where our Church of England is thinking of changing its name to Community of England from the Church of England, right? I think so. There is no replacement over there. This is why, remember, like when we first talked, this is why I was saying, like, people maybe need to go back to church, or people need to go back to Christianity and stuff, because I don't know how to fix that problem without Christianity right now, because no, people are not capable. You and I might be, and others might be more intelligent than us, might be able to ascertain for themselves the values and morality on their own. But majority of the people need guidance, and I don't know how we provide that if we are saying the alternative to the religion is just a materialistic liberal outlook, a liberal materialistic outlook, which is even divorced from humanism now, which is going towards wokeism, right? That is the only alternative. So that's what I feel like. Everyone is so disconnected that all of these elements, rather than facing up to what the core problems are, they're actually waiting for a war. They're waiting for a disaster. They're waiting for a civil war. They're actually probably rooting for it subconsciously. All of the people rooting for a meteor strike or whatever, like something disaster happens where they can let go of this facade, where they can let go of this fake reality around them and just, restart.
Well, that's precisely what Labour is. Well, actually, successive governments have done. They are simply trying to maintain the illusion and to keep the ball rolling. It's kind of the moment the moment somebody drops the ball, the whole thing collapses. And so they're trying to divert our attention constantly. As Douglas Murray was saying, we should be having a discussion about these kind of things,
Mm,
what happened in Southport, but within days it becomes a second order debate about how people express themselves online.
mm,
It's the politics of distraction
yeah,
to keep us from doing anything that might actually expedite a conclusion.
mm,
Because if we were to have a debate, then we might actually conclude something. And frankly, none of those conclusions are regime friendly.
no,
None of those are particularly uh, good for Islam in Britain. All of these require muscular action that politicians would rather not take, and so this is why they rather just resign themselves and just keep the ball rolling with censorship if they have to. This is pure managerialism, narrative management, as much as anything else. Um, but going back to your point about Tommy Robinson and getting that politics into a mainstream party. Well, don't forget that was almost the case, because when we'd left the EU, there was a question of, well, what if UKIP is going to continue existing? What is it actually for? Because it was designed to get us out the EU, and then you got, I believe, Carl Benjamin, was it, that moved in on it, and I think Tommy Robinson was heading that direction, and they were going to basically capture UKIP from the inside out. and that had all the top UKIP people just bailing out overnight. And so it just became what it is today. So there is an inherent reluctance of respectable politics to take on any of those subject matters, and I think Farage believes if he took on board any of what Tommy Robinson was pushing, it would transform reform it from being this milquetoast generic populist party to something.
But people like focus too much on when people do that, they focus too much on the personalities and forget about the underlying issues, what creates those personalities, right? So he didn't just reject Tommy Robinson
Yeah,
and put him under the bus. Along with him, he rejected the whole of the people, the
yeah,
white working class people who actually had concerns. Different people articulate their frustrations differently. We
yeah.
need to understand that, right? We need to understand it's not the words. Like, look at the intentions, what people are saying. They're frustrated. They have gone through things personally that have changed them, right? And they're seeing that they are low in the picking order for their own government. Like, they're seeing other people getting advantage over their head, right, while they are locked in the cycle of misery in their own country. They don't have a way of getting out of the country. They have
Mm,
nothing left. And then when they see like a person like Farage, they put someone like Tommy Robinson under the bus. They're not putting Tommy Robinson. He's not a person anymore. He's like a movement, right? So
yes.
he's putting the concerns of everyone under the bus then, rather than like taking on board the problems. Like, this is why I'm saying, like, Farage should have been bold enough to go and try to calm down the riots, or to go and give leadership to people, to give a voice to people. Here I am, like, I will fight to the government. I'll fight against the government for you. This is why you voted me in. This was a purpose of reform. It was a rejection of the main parties. I'm going to do that for you. But no, he stayed quiet because he didn't want to get into trouble. And then, like days later, he comes out and throws everyone under the bus. This is what I dislike. Like,
Mm.
it's not like people need to move away from personalities. Different personalities will take over different ideas and stuff. It doesn't matter. That can change. But
Well,
as long as if you address the problem of the people, those personalities have the capacity to change as well. Because
well,
like, if you don't do that, those personalities will start getting more and more extreme because you're
yeah.
pushing them towards it.
Yeah, I think I think basically what you're saying is we need better than Farage, and I quite agree,
Mhm.
because Farage is he is not a details man. He's very, everything he says is on a very superficial level. He very rarely speaks with expertise and authority. It's all received wisdom from the people around him, and he probably doesn't get the time to think to put this all into a
Hmm.
coherent narrative of his own. So he's always on the fly. He's a seat of the pants kind of guy. He's not a considered thinker. A lot of people mistake him as one, but I guarantee you he isn't.
Um,
Um, what we need is, I've often said, what we need is an Eric Zemmour kind of figure,
hmm.
someone who is sharp, educated, and so we are actually, as well as I said earlier, Nigel Farage is a product of pre-Brexit.
Yeah.
He's a relic from a different world. The movement
He's
does
still
need
operating
new
with that
leadership,
mindset, isn't he?
and Farage needs to just step out the way.
Hmm.
And I would venture, I can take or leave his electoral analysis. His academic work is actually, in my view, uh, quite poor, but
Matt Goodwin.
uh, Matt Goodwin.
Yeah.
You
He's a leader.
listen to him speak. He speaks with purpose. He speaks with precision. He's young. He's a good-looking fella. He's
And that matters in politics, by the way. If people think that it doesn't, it does matter a lot.
yeah. These things matter.
Yeah, aesthetics matter.
And he's still got a lot of political energy left in his life.
And
He's
when he
about,
speaks, there's genuine care, right?
yeah,
You can sense the genuine care that he has, that for then the love for his country and the love for his people. You can
Well,
sense that in him.
he's done the point is he's done the thinking.
Hmm.
Now, when Farage was his age, Farage actually in the first days of UKIP, he used to speak with conviction, and he used to speak about from a considered point of view
Hmm.
about the EU. That's what brought him into politics, and that's what that's what made his career. He built that momentum. But now he's pretty much towards the end of his career. He's got his accomplishments. He's now in someone else's territory
Hmm.
because this isn't the basis of his politics. Whereas you look at Goodwin, he's come up through his academic career, he has done the thinking,
Hmm.
he has diagnosed the problem, he's now thinking about solutions, and he recognizes two things: that the solutions have to be robust
Yeah.
and that the situation is urgent. And so this is a man who can speak in ways that dare the left to
Yeah.
call. He's saying,
Yeah.
call me racist because
Yeah.
I've got the facts here, and it's not
Yeah.
just facts; it's perceptions, and it's based on this research. It's based on these surveys. It's based on these observable realities. You are free to debate me, and you
And
will
he has,
lose.
this is what I love about him. He has debated, and he's always challenging people who are on the opposite side of him. And the way that he debates as well is very respectable. But he give like he doesn't need like a planned narrative to speak out, right? He doesn't need a pre-planned answers to
Yeah,
questions that he will just say it, like when he's entrapped or something. He can think on his own. He can,
yeah,
you know
and so what I don't know what his Achilles heel is, of course, Farage, because all of
Farage
his
is everyone's Achilles heel.
strategic intelligence and everything he's written on his blog that I've seen, he was basically the one saying that populism has got this inherent lid of 20%. You're not going to break it.
Hmm.
So what you want is to build a movement and a party that can move out of that cul-de-sac and grow into a genuine grassroots movement. And he was
Hmm.
saying that right up until the day Farage came back to reform, and then
The same
his
thing happened to Ben Habib as well.
yeah, they just swoon the minute
Yeah.
Farage walks into the room, and then he starts talking all that 2015 crap about the
Hmm.
Purple Revolution, the People's Army
Yeah.
is going to switch power,
Yeah.
and it's just it's for some reason his intellect just drools out of his bottom, and this
I
is
think so. It's
another.
like he might have to. I don't know. Like I think so. It's a conscious decision to censor yourself when Farage comes back into the fold, because otherwise you might be torpedoing your future opportunity, right? Because you
Yeah,
can't
well,
go against Farage in that. I think so. That's what happened to Ben Habib as well.
yeah,
But Ben Habib has been actually more vocal than Matt Goodwin
and it just
about.
cost him everything. But
Yeah.
that's another
Yeah.
thing. That is how Farage operates, and this
Yeah.
is what I've been telling you. I've been telling everyone.
Hmm.
The minute the minute you say, "Look, uh, what we've achieved will get us so far,
Hmm.
but we need to be better."
Hmm.
These are the things we need to do. We need Farage to focus. We need him to show some leadership. We need to build a grassroots
Hmm.
organisation. We need intellectual work. We need policy, and we need to be running campaigns, and we need to be lodging ministerial questions and wrong-footing the government. We need to be making use of parliamentary resources and parliamentary time to
Hmm.
make points and to score points.
Yeah.
But instead, they're treating it the same way as they did when they were MEPs, where they would
Hmm.
turn up, they'd have their speech, upload it to social media, and piss off down the pub.
Yeah, because it
This
was
is not how you
inconsequential. Like
build.
there was no consequences to them doing that at that
Yeah,
moment. Now there
but
are
this
real
matters.
consequences. This
So
matters.
reform is absolutely squandering the
Hmm.
opportunity. And they need to be recognising that the 2029 general election campaign has already started. So they need to have identified the top 20 seats where they came second. They
Yeah.
need to have established local branches there
Hmm.
already. They need to be interviewing candidates with a local connection, intelligent people who are articulate and can defend their politics with passion and
Yeah.
accuracy. So
But
you don't have.
they were showcasing these three councillors from Wales as a coup that they have got them into Reform Party. It's like there are three inconsequential councillors from Wales,
Yeah,
right? It's like no, no, no. You have to go and get the councillors from the parties. Oh, sorry, from the places where you came second.
yeah.
That's where you have to go and get the counselors, not like just
So
some desperate people somewhere else.
yeah, I mean, my view is that there is the potential to convert its 5 seats
Hmm.
into 25,
Yeah.
and then the next general election you convert that into possibly 70,
Yeah.
even 100.
Yeah.
You create the momentum, but you've got to build it at the grassroots level. But this is the kind of disciplined hard work that it takes, and Ben Habib gets
Yeah.
it, but to a point. But that has just
But
there's only
that's what I think. Like, if you remove Farage and Tice from the party going forward, right? If you just remove them, it instantly can become better because people like Ben Habib can actually be able to influence what they want to do, the grassroots levels and stuff. People like Matt Goodwin can come into the party and don't have to censor themselves because of the specter of Farage. And other people can as well come into the party because the baggage of Farage is gone then, right? And alliances can be built, which is like ideological alliance only, like not a party alliance or anything like that, because you have to work cross parties on different policies and stuff. And the thing is like, this was my thinking as well, because we need a party with at least 25 to 30 seats, not like a majority, but 25 to 30 seats, because they become a block within the parliament. They can write white papers and they can push the policies through,
yeah.
and they
And
can
of course,
show up the ruling government.
this is just categorically not going to happen under Farage. This is
No,
not how
no,
he
yeah.
rolls. And there's only two ways into Farage's gang. And this is what you've got to understand about Farage is he doesn't have a party. He has a gang.
Hmm.
And there's only two ways to get into the gang. You can either be elected into it, or you can get your checkbook out and buy your way into it.
Hmm.
Ben Habib didn't get elected, so he's no longer in the gang.
Yeah.
And so Farage doesn't have a use for him,
They
and
didn't even give him an easy seat to win as well.
uh,
You know, they
yeah,
could have.
well,
They could have.
he had problems with the local organisation. He had volunteers
Mm,
coming from all over the country,
yeah.
turning up to meet at a local shopping centre. There was nobody there to meet them and give them task assignments. So
Mm,
they just don't understand how to run a competent ground campaign,
mm,
and that's one of the things they lost when they uh, they they basically alienated UKIP, because UKIP had some pretty damn good electoral agents and people
mm,
who knew electoral law, people who knew the constituencies
mm,
inside out, who knew where you would be best doing a leafleting campaign, which neighbourhoods to bother with, which ones not to bother with. This is the kind of local intelligence you need, but you've got people who believe the way you do politics is through Twitter, YouTube,
TikTok
forums
and
such
yeah.
as this. Yeah, that's all important, but you
You need to do the
still have to
policies of
turn
the
up
politics. Yeah.
locally. That's how
Yeah.
you win. You turn up. This
Yeah.
is how SDP has scored its successes in Leeds.
Yeah.
They made their presence felt locally.
Mm,
But this is organic stuff that happened in UKIP, not because of Farage, but in spite of him. But for some reason, probably because of the structure of the party, this is not being replicated in Reform. So we're actually wasting a lot of breath in
No,
hypothetical terms
that's what
because,
I'm saying. To be honest, like it's the third, your third scenario is the most likely scenario, because every player in this, we don't want that to happen, right? We don't want that to happen, but every player in this scenario is disconnected from each other, and disconnected from themselves, and
yeah,
disconnected from the party, and they just are trying to, find a way so that they are fine. They're just trying to secure themselves in some way or another, right? And this is why we have, like, sectarianism in every part of our country now, like from the politics to the people, to the, like, local communities everywhere. This is why I don't think so it gets resolved. It just does. I don't think so it gets resolved, apart from a lot of unrest, a lot of, like, that sort of disaster, while we people are trying to live along each other. And then whatever, after that disaster, we turn into, we end up being Greece, basically. There was once a great civilization.
yeah.
Now it's in ruins.
Yeah, it's said of Greece that it's a poor country occupied by rich people, and you do have a lot of shipping millionaires,
And
and
you have
there's
nice weather.
quite a lot of money in the place, but the country itself is dirt poor,
Mhm.
and nothing at all gets done without bribe. It's one of the
Yeah.
most corrupt countries on earth, and that is where we're going. We're going
Yeah.
into this third worldism because we just don't have a politics cohesive enough. Um,
We don't have
that
interested part. The thing is, like, for so long we have promoted, and we have not promoted, even, like, we have just ignored these incompetent fools and kept on voting for them, because the public did not want to engage, right? This is why I think democracy doesn't work unless the majority is engaged with, not
Yeah, I mean,
not
look,
the aspects of politics, right? No, you can't expect everyone in the country to know about every single detailed policy and stuff, or how it works and whatnot, but you need to know basics of it. You need an educated majority, right,
yeah,
to be able to vote by knowledge, by information and stuff like that. But we've had people who just wanted to, okay, now it's your job, right? Is that it's not my responsibility, or the council is going to clean up the street, I'm not going to clean up the street. That that mentality has come in. There's no, and so long we have these people now that have been, that we think, like, there's so many people in Tory and Labours as well, that we say, oh, they're good politicians because they've been there for 20, 30 years.
hmm.
What the hell have they done
I
in
don't know.
20, 30 years?
I think you do the public a disservice because they are informed enough not to bother voting for the
Okay.
Labour
Yeah.
and the Tories.
Yeah.
You've got a government in; it's got a landslide for sure,
Mm,
but only 20% of the people actually voted for Labour,
mm,
and nobody likes Starmer, nobody wants him there.
mm.
Labour did not win that election. The Tories
A
lost
good
it
point.
because
Yeah.
they deserved to lose it, and
Mm,
that is usually the case. It's one of my it's part of my shtick that the British public have a 100% track record of being right.
mm,
They got rid of they got rid of John Major because he needed getting rid of.
mm,
Uh, they got rid of Labour when it was time to get rid of Labour. And when they did get rid of Labour, they didn't give David Cameron a majority because he didn't
mm.
deserve one.
Yeah.
And so the only thing that got him a majority was when he offered an EU referendum and we voted out. So,
Mm.
we were right. We've been right every single time, and we were right this time to kick the Tories out because we gave them a massive majority and they did nothing with it.
But that leads
And
to that
Labour is
point,
going to
doesn't
be
it?
destroyed
That
as well.
that leads to that point, that the public has tried all peaceful means.
This is it. This is the terrifying thing. We
Yeah.
are last chance saloon now
Yeah.
because we have proved to destruction that
Mm.
voting isn't working.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have said, the great mystery about these riots is why they haven't happened sooner. Well, I think I have an answer to that now. Is because the Brits are patient. We've gone through the motions. We have done it as you're supposed to do.
Mm.
At general elections, we've gone down to the polling booth, we've registered what we want to happen, and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so this is the final straw where we've got a Labour government that nobody wanted, that will not work in the national interest or in the public's interest. And they have finally said that not only is your vote worthless, we are not listening. We are not listening at all.
You are
You
worthless.
don't
That's
have
what they've said.
legitimate
Yeah.
grievances. You're just racist plebs,
Mm.
and we want nothing to do with you. And if you speak out of turn, we're going to lock you up.
Mm.
Well, actually, that's democracy dead and buried.
Yeah.
So this only deteriorates from here.
Yeah.
So once we get to the next election, yeah, there could even be a huge swing again, but again, it will be a very low turnout. We will have a politics and a government with zero legitimacy, and
Yeah.
when it decides to put down the law, lay down the law, it simply doesn't have the moral authority to do so.
It doesn't have
Um,
the consent of the public anymore.
yeah,
And
once you lost consent, then
yeah. And
you're on
how
the road
can
to
how can we
anarchy.
like blame then? How can we blame anyone then, no matter what the personality is, to not incite violence, right? Not the violence, but at least, like, a battle cry, sort of a sort of thing that will incite violence. How can we blame such people not to do that? Because we are like, the system is showing them there is no other way. There is
Yeah,
no
I
other
mean,
way. We are going to pick you up anyways, one by one,
yeah,
and ruin your life.
yeah.
So what is the other way for them, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, we had endless outpourings of you know, posturing and moralizing politicians taking to the airwaves as it was all unfolding, saying
Hmm.
there can be no justification for what's going on in Rotherham. Really?
Yeah.
There can be no justification.
What
All
about
right.
the
Well,
girls who were
sorry.
raped over there?
What's Rotherham famous for lately?
Exactly.
You know, this
Yeah.
is not a reason a British town should be famous,
Yeah.
because thousands of teenage girls are being raped.
Yeah.
This is not a reason, you know.
While the state did nothing. The state did nothing
Meanwhile,
to help them.
what we've had, not so far from me, we had a migrant hotel.
Hmm.
There were reports, I think it was reported in the local York press, that an incident had happened where some young girls had been harassed. They didn't say it was anything to do with the migrants. They didn't say it was anything to do with the hotels, but the local rumour network seems to confirm what we suspect. But not only is there a veil of secrecy from local authorities and government, but the local media is absolutely complicit,
Hmm.
and it refuses to publish descriptions of assailants. And this is the automatic assumption we make, particularly in my town, York,
Hmm.
because York is a little rural provincial town, or it was when I was a kid. It's a
Hmm.
city, but it's town size.
Yeah.
It's
Glorified town. Yeah.
This stuff didn't happen when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Stabbings didn't happen at the rate they do, and if this kind of thing happened, it would shock the nation. But now it's an
And
everyday event.
one
So
important thing, if it would have happened at that time, it would have been reported as well openly, because there was
oh
no
yeah,
PC culture,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So the
So
fact
what?
that it has not been reported, you can
Yeah,
pick up all those newspapers and stuff from old. If it has not been reported, that means it was definitely not happening.
yeah. So you take Rotherham, which is already a tinderbox, already very sore, very sour about
Hmm.
what's happened. Then you've got a local hotel, and the government is operating under a veil of secrecy. And then you have a Labour government. It's one of its first acts. One of its very first acts was to declare an effective amnesty on the illegal immigrants who were already here. And then Yvette Cooper saying, "Oh, we're going to just deposit them around the country," and they're not. They say, "Oh, we're going to have even and fair spread," but we know it doesn't mean that. It just means that they're going to be deposited around all the shit tips of the north of England,
Yeah.
Rotherham, Bury, Oldham,
Yeah.
uh, all of these left
Bolton. And
behind,
yeah.
forgotten
Yeah.
places. That's what they mean by even
Hmm.
and fair distribution. And they're going to do it without telling anybody. And
Or seeking
the,
consent.
the question The question is, why did they not expect this? Because you had all the signals from Ireland where the Irish have
Mm.
actually burned
Yeah,
down
yeah.
places that were scheduled to house migrants. But the sheer arrogance of the politicians saying there can be no justification for you going out and expressing your anger that we are depositing third world, low
Mm,
IQ illegal immigrants in your communities, putting your families, putting your daughters, putting your wives in danger of rape, murder, or worse, when there is precedent to believe that it will happen. You don't get to tell me or anybody else that there
mm.
is no justification,
Yeah,
because you can register your disapproval at the ballot box. You can register your disapproval with the police. You can vote differently in local council elections. You can put in a complaint to the Home Office. And guess what the answer is? Two words, F you.
yeah.
So
And
don't tell me that there's...
in the older times when a king would have failed this miserably to protect its own people, right? Whether they had a parliament or not didn't matter, right? The responsibility is the head of the state. By the end of the day, in the old times, it would have happened. The barons would have raised their own army, and they would have, they would have gone after the king for failing the country so miserably. It
Yeah,
has happened before, right? We don't have that anymore, opportunity to do that anymore, because we cannot
we've
have
got
war.
Facebook groups now.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is the
Exactly.
thing. The media was saying that all of this was orchestrated by far right groups. I think the first Southport riot kind of was, because I did see flyers going
Mm,
around in Facebook groups among the patriot groups
mm,
that I subscribe to. I read those. So I'm pretty sure that there were some out of towners who headed on up to Southport,
mm,
but from what I gather, all the places where hotel protests happened, these were locals, especially the one at
yeah.
Rotherham. It wasn't even Rotherham; it was Wath upon Dearne, which is
Mm,
up the road. But this there are groups like I've been introduced to one called Mexborough Uncensored, and I don't know how much you know of Mexborough, but it's a little South Yorkshire town. Was connected to mines in the region. Once quite prosperous, but now it's an absolute shell of its former self, and the buildings on the high street are actually derelict with holes in the roof. And this is the kind of deprivation and misery that these places have become. Um, and you look at the local Facebook groups, and the stuff that people are saying in there, the local white working class communities, you put it side by side with what's said in supposed far right patriot groups. There's not an
mm.
awful lot of difference. I just don't see a difference. And some of the stuff in there is absolutely wild. And there were people saying, go down, kick off, fill your boots. And there were some people
Mm.
who were in real time inciting and encouraging that kind of violence. Now, you and I can condemn that, and it should be condemned.
But we have
But
to realize why it has happened, right? The
yeah,
frustration that
but
you're
you
pushing
can't have
people.
Starmer saying,
Yeah.
there's no
He's a
justification.
leader. He's
Yeah,
supposed to be the prime minister for everyone. You can't, because once you do that, once you say that all of them are far right and stuff, and no matter how they're articulating their frustrations, that all their frustrations henceforth become invalid because they are far right, because they're seen as
yeah.
far right. That's just like, well, everyone is far right then, because you've started a war against your own people then.
Well, this then moves beyond mere two-tier policing. This
Mm,
becomes two-tier institutions,
yeah.
and we can see the hypocrisy right before our eyes, because any other time there's a riot, Every sociologist, every politics department in every university in the land, every race grifter, every minister will all stop and pause to consider, why did this happen? What was the motivation behind this? What was the trigger? What caused it to spiral out of control? What is the justification? And then they will arrive at, oh well, it's the blacks this time, or it's
Mm.
the Muslims. They are deprived. They haven't got enough ping pong tables, or austerity, clearly, or it's institutional racism in the police.
Yeah.
Any excuse. There's no end of excuse for going out into Croydon and setting Croydon on fire.
Mm.
If you're, if you're black lads, you just blame the police. It's because I
Yeah.
is black, isn't it? It doesn't matter that these lads are busy turning London's gutters red with blood and murdering each other. Nah, it's our fault. It's the establishment's fault. It's anybody's fault. And then, of course, when it comes to people who look like me from the places where I was brought up, when we take to the streets, oh no, there's no possible underlying cause.
Yeah, there
Nah,
can't
this
be
is
any
just.
other reason apart from them being racist
Mm,
and bigoted and Nazis. Like, we will find one person who has a tattoo, and we'll make
yeah.
that person into the whole, like, demographics. Then,
Well, the joke of it is these people do not even have the first idea what a real far right looks like. But
yeah.
if you want to look at what a
Hmm.
real far right looks like, go to their beloved European Union. Go
Yeah.
to, I mean, some of that stuff. Poland.
Hmm.
Poland has a far right that makes British patriot groups that turn out to Tommy Rollins. It makes them look like the Women's Institute.
Yeah.
Czechoslovakia,
Hmm.
Ukraine.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, they've actually got fascist militias.
Hmm.
These are terrifying people.
Yeah.
And if you actually met any of these people, and I don't actually think there are many of these types, I think there's maybe a small cell somewhere in Hebden Bridge or Huddersfield.
It's very
But in
fringe.
terms of
And
actual Nazism, it
the
just
thing,
doesn't exist.
yeah, I think so. The reason as well is it doesn't exist, but it will exist if we keep on ignoring people, right? If we keep on telling people, they will keep on being showing sympathy towards their narratives and stuff. If all it needs is one intelligent person from, or mid intelligence person, come from that sort of mentality, from that sort of group, to overtake the movement, any sort of movement, and it
Yeah,
will just corrupt, right?
well,
Because we keep
extremism
on
begets
frustrating.
extremism.
Yeah, because we keep on pushing people towards it. If they don't see a point, then they'll be like, I don't care about, like, whatever you are. I don't care whether you're Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, whatever. Get out of my country, right? And we very much, like, very close to that point where people have that frustration, and rather than trying to understand that, we just condemn it. Oh, it's wrong. It's never wrong for people to think. It's never wrong for people to feel. It's
Mm,
wrong to ignore why they're feeling. They might be feeling the wrong way, but there's always a reason why they're feeling the wrong way, right? So we can't keep on condemning people, and can't keep on telling the white working class people, you must not think this way, while your daughters are getting raped and
mm.
killed in front of your eyes. I'm sorry, it doesn't work like that.
The-
And
the-
if this thing would have happened in Poland,
yeah,
I can assure you, because I have been in Poland for past 13
yes,
years
of
now. I've
course.
been
Yeah,
married to a Polish person for past 13 years now. They would have kicked the shit out of those people in a day, and the police would have looked away.
yeah. And of course, this is against a backdrop. I mean, where I'm from, Bradford in the north of England, depressed mill town, and in the 70s they basically brought over Pakistanis from some of the worst parts of the
Yeah.
world.
They
Um,
don't even get along within the metropolitan cities
yeah,
within Pakistan.
and they didn't fit in because they couldn't.
No.
And they were brought over as a replacement workforce because they'd been during World War II. They'd managed to get women to work in the factories,
Mm.
uh, and they actually enjoyed having a living and having a bit of independence. But the one
Mm.
thing you couldn't get women to do was work nights,
Yeah.
so that's why they brought the Pakistanis over as a replacement workforce. And because of globalization of textile trades and liberalization, they all went belly up anyway because
Mm.
they refused to invest in the kind of technology that Hong Kong, Japan, their textiles was light years ahead. Some
Mm.
of our Bradford mills in the late 70s and early 80s were still using the original Victorian rigging. This is something they intrinsically did not want to do, and again they relied on cheap labour. Now that was 40 years ago and 50 years ago. They very gradually started to integrate. It was glacial, but it was happening. And there are parts of Pakistani culture in Bradford that is anglicised, that though it looks Pakistani, if you
Mm.
put it back into Pakistan, it wouldn't fit because
No.
it's more British than it is Pakistani. Um, so this is what stopped me from going all out ethno-nationalism, because I believed that
Mm.
integration, though slow, was possible, and that uh, Islam could fit in. And there's one good example of this. At the top of Bradford, there's a mosque,
Mm.
and it was built out of Yorkshire sandstone bricks, and it
Mm.
was quite good, except it had this horrible enamel green, muslin green
Yeah.
dome, and it looked horrendous, and it
Mm.
didn't look like it belonged, and it was a bone of contention um, for everybody in Bradford, because it was just a fuck you basically.
Yeah.
They planted this mosque. They didn't care whether it fit into Bradford, but they put this green dome on for one principal reason. It was, I think it was fiberglass, and it was cheap.
Mm.
But as that Muslim community got richer, they replaced it with a much more ornate lead dome, and lead on Yorkshire stone. It is a beautiful building, and once it acquires 40, 50 years worth of weathering, it will look like it's been in Bradford forever. So we were making progress until, of course, the grooming story came along. That
Mm.
that really upset tensions. But then, of course, we get the Tories who just open the borders, and according to Pakistan's own migration ministry, more Pakistanis came to Britain in the last 5 years than in the entire span of when the first one landed here.
Can you believe
So
that?
when they
Can
are
you believe
coming
that?
here, they do not integrate into English society
They
or,
don't
or,
have
or
to.
British society or even Yorkshire society, because it no longer exists. There is nothing British for them to integrate into.
Mm.
And you see it because they are now creeping out to suburbs. As they get richer, they're buying up more and more of the property. But the high street where I was brought up, that was a white area, but you now see women in burqas, men in shalwar
Mm.
kameez, speaking on their phones in a foreign language. So they are here in a foreign capacity. They look foreign. They speak foreign. They don't want anything to do. This is a separatist movement
Yeah.
with a foreign religion. Everything about
Everything
it
is foreign.
says
Yeah.
to me, as a working class ish Yorkshireman, um, that these people are not here to integrate or
Mm.
to interact with me or share the space that we have together.
Mm.
They are here to colonize it. And as such, I don't feel that I have to consent to this. I do not consent to this, to what is in fact an invasion. And when I see in general elections, you look at Bradford politics and that ghastly Naz Shah creature conducting her electoral addresses
Yeah.
in Urdu, handing out leaflets in a foreign language, excludes me from my politics in my own hometown, in my own country, and I am entitled to resent that.
Yeah,
I am being excluded. They have colonized the politics of my own town.
yeah.
And so if I
and
ever moved back there, not that I would, I would have to learn a foreign language to know who's actually standing for election.
and the thing is, like,
I'm
why
sorry,
you are actually at a position where you don't want to go back to your hometown, right?
it's not my hometown
No,
anymore.
because yeah, exactly, that's what I was gonna say. And the thing is, like, it frustrates me deeply because when I came over here, this is what I was trying to tell all these Pakistanis as well. When I came over here, right, and I saw the kind of people that were coming in into Pakistan, oh sorry, into Pakistan, yeah, into England. Just future projection of England, misspoke. What was a kind of people that were coming into England, and I was like, instantly I had this idea, like, have I made a mistake? Because these are the very same kind of people that I got away from, right? I know that they don't have the merit to be here, right?
Mm,
They're not coming on the basis of skills and stuff. I know they're trying to fool an education system. They're not probably not even going to go to the universities, most of them. They're
mm.
just going to do three or four kind of jobs, and send the money back home, and they keep on deferring their college degrees and stuff. I knew like this was happening. And I was like, "Oh, surely the competent government of Britain that we always heard about when we were outside of Britain will get a handle on this and will kick these people out. Who the hell do they think they are, trying to come to Britain and screw up Britain, right? Every year it didn't happen. Every year it didn't happen. I was like, and this disenchantment came in. It's like, my God, like
Yeah,
they
well,
have really betrayed their people. Any other place, they would be hanged
yeah.
for their actions, for their treachery.
Well, this is a product of British moral supremacy. This is who we believe ourselves to be
Hmm.
as the victors of the Second World War and the defeaters of fascism. Um, if in effect, the Second World War cost us the empire; it destroyed the empire, so we were a new country. And our foundation myth is that we stood alone and we beat the German invasion, which wasn't actually going to happen.
Hmm.
The most of the Battle of Britain is mythology,
Hmm.
and then as the victor of Normandy and the Second World War, we that becomes part of a foundation myth that we are. And when we discovered what had gone on in the Holocaust, that became the post facto rationale for why we fought fascism. And so it's become part of our national psyche that we stand against,
It's a very important point. Like,
racism, imperialism, and yada yada yada. And so it has crippled us. It has
hmm,
absolutely crippled us from asserting our own values, because over the years, asserting your own values and your own national standards, it has been somehow elided with German nationalism,
hmm,
when actually nationalism wasn't the problem. It was German imperialism.
yeah, yeah,
That was
yeah,
what was murderous. It was the anti-Semitic imperialism. But somehow along the way, the left have quite successfully conflated nationalism with fascism. And because it speaks to our own national ego, we will not stand on our own terms. And
yeah.
it's destroying us.
Yeah, and anyone who tries to even bring up the idea that we need to have conservatism back into politics, proper conservatism, they're seen as, oh, you want Nazism back, don't you? Like, you want the far right back, don't you? And even the parties who pretend to be or have the name of conservatives, they agree with that. It's like, oh yeah, we don't want that. Even Reform to a point would go like, oh yeah, we don't want that. We just want, like, fiscally be conservative, right? And what is fiscal conservatism, if it's not in line with social conservatism, right?
Mm.
Because then you're asking a group of people who don't have the temperament socially to be conservative fiscally. It's not gonna work, right? But coming to we have been going on for a while now. Actually, I checked on Twitter, we have over 1400 people watching us, which is pretty cool. Obviously on YouTube, It didn't go on, and I expected, it was my first live stream. I knew I was going to screw up something, but hopefully if it's recording, I might be able to put up this episode at a later point. Hopefully I'm using Riverside. It might be recording. It says it's recording, live recording, so I'll put this up tomorrow or something, or tonight on YouTube as well. But in closing sort of a thing, what I wanted to talk about is, what let's imagine our own utopia, right? That we have competent people in politics, which will never happen. Well,
High fantasy.
yeah. Yeah, proper
We're going
fantasy,
to talk
right?
about dwarves and elves as well,
Yeah.
aren't we? Right.
Yes, yes, we are. So if we have a very competent elf come in, a group of elves come in to our politics, um what would we want to see in an immigration policy, um, which can resolve the problem? It might not resolve the problems straight away, because most of the people have this intention that we're going to get reform in, and majority of reform in, and they're going to just kick out everyone from the country, right? Well, that doesn't happen, and it can't happen even if we have the intention to make it happen, right? So, what are the policies that we think that can actually fix the country, if we had the right people in politics?
Well,
What would be the what we like what would be the five things you think, like, which can actually I'm doing this because I want to
yeah,
talk about, because you are writing that manifesto, right? So I don't know if you have already written about immigration, because I was reading few of the things there.
extensively, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just to expand on that, and hopefully, like, maybe in the future what we can do is we can pick up each point of your manifesto and
Mhm.
do a live stream and have people come in and talk about it, while we can, sort of like, just to make it even, robust. So what do you think, like, the five main things that we can do in policy, which are able to do in policy and can fix these issues, or
Well, as a
in the future?
starter for 10, you've got to
Mm,
rebuild the institutions to detect illegal immigration.
mm,
That's your
mm, mm,
first
mm, mm.
priority. So
Yeah,
you've got to rebuild local government, your trading standards, your environmental health,
mm,
all of the inspectorates where you would find malpractice, and where you find malpractice, you find money laundering, gang crime, and there you find illegal immigration.
yeah.
Similarly with
So
housing sector.
detection, investigation,
Yeah,
enforcement, and then leading up to whatever it
yes.
might do,
So you
deportation.
take care of that first, and of course you want your foreign criminals out.
Yeah,
So you want to biometrically log them and kick them out of the country, and then you want to start to cut. You basically want to remove all welfare entitlements to foreign-born people.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and or at least have a contributions threshold of 7 to 10 years. I don't know.
Mm.
That's something to be
So
debated. But
10 years is the time that you can have, if you're non-EU person, you can have your nationality, like your citizenship, right?
yeah,
So maybe it should be like, it could be like, if only if you're a citizen, because then it's
yeah.
expected that you have spent at least 10 years in this country contributing. So 10 years contributing, or like citizenship should
But
only be citizenship. Doesn't matter if you've been here 20 years or 30 years, because you might
the
not
point
be.
the point, of course, if you go to other multicultural countries,
Mm,
there's examples in the Middle East where you will find people from all over, but they are transient workers, and they come
yeah,
to work to do the job and then send money home. You know,
they don't get
we
any
can have
benefit.
that.
Mm,
We can have that, but this idea of family reunion, bringing in
no, it's
low
wrong.
skill, low IQ people, and then bringing in their dependents is absolutely insane. So this whole
Yeah.
idea of family reunion, and if it means we've got to dump the ECHR, then we must do that as
Yeah.
a first
So
order of
on
business.
that point, because I want to, like, add my points to your points as well. So family reunion, family visas and stuff. So let me give, and also the temporary working visas and stuff like that. So let me give my own example, right? So I was born in a country in Kuwait, which did not give me nationality, because I was not of their tribe. Even though I was
Hmm.
born there, my older sister was born there and stuff like that. So I got a default nationality of Pakistan, because both my parents were born in Pakistan, right? So And when I turned, like when I was going to turn 18, I had either the option of getting work and work visa, or getting out of the country, right? Or being in a university so that I get student visa. So till you turn 18, you can live with your parents and stuff, so you are on dependent visa. So we could have family dependent visas, but they are dependent on the main worker still having work. And
Yeah.
when that person does not have any work, I don't get any automatic rights from that worker. So it's not as if I've lived in England for 18 years. Let's say if my parents came to England and they were working on England on work visas, and I was born in England and I lived till I was 18. I don't get to apply for citizenship. No, I should get to apply for citizenship when I have, on my own 2 feet, have
Mhm.
done those 10 years and contributed myself into the economy, right? That that's completely different set. I mean, we can very easily have that because the country that I was had that, right? And there's the reason why I became a nomad, because I was born in a country that didn't wanted me. Then I went to Pakistan, to a country that I couldn't assimilate into. So I had to come over here, right? But the laws does not care about didn't care about my sensibilities, my needs and stuff. It care about their countries and their
Mhm.
nations one, right? So yeah. So I just wanted to add that onto the family. It's not as if like it's unheard of. Many
Yeah.
countries that we see as the global majority do it anyways.
Yeah, so it's measures like this, but then as I say, you can't deal with immigration as a single subject matter.
Hmm.
Like I say, a lot of the problem immigration is symptomatic of other institutional problems, and it's that kind of analysis you got to do: rebuilding local government, rebuilding your inspectorates, rebuilding an idea of citizenship,
Hmm.
rebuilding an idea of that passports are not a tradable commodity. They
Yeah.
actually have substantive meaning, and we've got to restore that meaning, and oaths of allegiance that actually mean something with tangible, measurable metrics that turn a visa into actual citizenship.
So
Uh,
before you go on, let me add another point to that as well, right? Because this is really good because I have experience of those things, right? So I have applied for citizenship and got citizenship, right? So I can add those points as well to give it a meat on that sort of
mm,
side. So I went through the citizenship process. It was more about the money that I was giving in, 1300 to 1350 or something around that money, rather than the test. The aptitude test was pathetic. The English language test was absolutely pathetic because that was bypassed anyways because I had a
yes,
degree.
disgrace.
I had a master's degree from the country, so they said I don't need to do my like language test or anything like that, which I think so is wrong because there's a lot of people who do the degrees, and this is a way for you to catch whether they done it from a blacklisted or should be a blacklisted to be a
Good thinking.
blacklisted university or something, or got it from other means. So they
Hmm.
they they bypass that test, and then I went to the aptitude test, which, as I famously say, I took more time putting my things in the locker than I did doing the test. Right, I was done within 5 minutes, and I checked twice my test as well. It was that easy. Now, it could have been easy because maybe I study history a lot, right? And I've been studying British history from since I was young, right? So maybe it was easier for me in that respect. But it should be harder. It should be a lot harder. And
Yeah.
it should not be just about your aptitude test. Nobody came in my home to check my living condition and stuff. Nobody came to see like how, like, they didn't do a sit down sort of that sort of interview,
Hmm.
because I was applying on the basis at that time because my wife was Polish, so I didn't take the 10 years for my application. I took less time because I was family member of a European person, right? So there are different rules and stuff like that for it. They never came to my home to check if I was actually married to my wife or not, right? Because this
Hmm.
happens in America. This happens in America. They didn't come to check whether I just, because it used to happen. People used to pay the Europeans. This is the reason. They used to pay European women 8 to 10,000 pounds. They would
Hmm.
pretend to be married, and then they would get their citizenship that way, right? And then they would divorce, because you only have to be married for 3 years. You
Yes.
can divorce after 3 years, and but you can do your 5 years and get whatever, right? So they never came to my home and checked that. So these things need to be a lot robust. It's sort of like, you cannot do, it's not the British that are applying for British citizenships. It's people from different cultures and countries who will try to take advantage of your system, that are
Mm.
applying for it. So you cannot treat them like you would a British person, taking them on their word. You have to be robust. You have to end dual nationality. For me, that's a problem. I think dual nationality should not exist. And if you want to keep your dual nationality like India does, then you just get residency. Then you
Hmm.
can get permanent residency. Like my wife, she has permanent residency. She's Polish. She doesn't want to take British nationality because, well, she's a Polish, right? So she's a
Yeah.
Pole. She's loyal to her country. But we
Well,
can
actually,
have those things.
that's actually one of the reasons I voted to leave the EU.
Hmm.
Was because I didn't have a particular objection to Polish being here. I think the Polish made an amazing contribution to
Hmm.
British life, and they have. To a large extent, effortlessly integrated, and the
Hmm.
culture that they brought here is valuable and interesting, and I've certainly benefited from it. And I can say that hand on heart, truthfully, about Poles. But I still have this objection to just sort of squatting with a European passport. If you're part of us, shit or get off the pot. If you want to come and live here, you want to with us, be with us. Have a British passport, have British citizenship. But this idea that having an EU passport is this golden ticket that you can float around and take your pick without
No,
actually
but
having to commit
you know
to
what?
anybody's welfare systems or having to commit to voting and actually be what it means. Citizenship isn't just a piece of paper. Citizenship is a mentality.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, Pete, if you went to, let's say, if you want to go to Singapore for like 5 years or 10 years or whatever temporary years, right? You would, like, you can just live over there on residency and stuff, be a
yeah,
good citizen, and like be a good member of the country and stuff, have permanent residency or long-term residency and stuff like that, not vote in the system and everything, and but be loyal to Britain, right? So this is, I think so, this is the mentality of, like, at least my wife, right? So for her, is that same thing, that I'm coming over here.
mm,
I don't expect to live forever in this country, unless she has to, and then she will think about like citizenship, if that is the outcome. um you know um she's respectful of Britain and stuff, but obviously she is more attached to her country, so she would want to vote in that country.
mhm,
She does not want to take a citizenship and an oath to a country in her own head as well, because it's disloyal. Because it's
mhm.
sort of like, in her own head, it's like, why? How can I take an oath to a king, which I don't
Mm.
see as my own king? I'm respectful to that king,
Yeah, I mean,
so it's sort of like that as well. But we can have those things.
yeah, on a visiting basis. But what I objected to was EU citizenship as a concept that
Oh,
basically,
back then, yes, yes,
yeah,
I agree with that. Like back then, it's like just having an EU passport meant you could stay over here. So
yeah,
she had to apply for a permanent residency, right?
mm,
And that is a better way of doing it, because her EU passport is not a matter; it's her contributions that they saw and stuff like that. How long she has
yeah,
lived over
because
here.
EU citizenship conferred rights of my country on foreigners without my consent, and
Hmm.
even if it worked out particularly well, I still
Yeah.
would have had an ideological principle
Hmm.
objection to it. It
Hmm.
wasn't theirs to give away.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like when we have the opportunity, when we have this thing in the system where you can have residencies and you can apply for residencies, like America has green cards and stuff like that, then why would you like uh, allow people to just be over here? This is what I didn't understand about EU. Why would we just allow someone to be over here? No, if you're an EU citizen and you want to work and be over here, then apply for work permit, right? And if you live for long enough, then you can apply for permanent residency.
Mhm.
Because permanent residency is a step down from citizenship. So if you misbehave, if you do a criminal activity and stuff,
Yeah,
you can be taken away and you can be kicked out easily, right?
but
That would,
we've just been handing out passports like Smarties to any
yeah,
incomer,
yeah.
and
That's what I feel
it's
like. That's for club
unsustainable.
cards,
Mm, yeah,
you know. And
it's
that's the thing, and this is why I would like dual nationality to be dissolved, to be taken out, because if you're a Pakistani and you want to keep hold of your Pakistani passport and you've lived here for a very long time, fair enough, you can have residency, permanent residency. You can apply for it because you can buy a house or whatever you want to do. But if you misbehave, then we can kick you out of the country, right? And also, if we don't have the capacity to keep you, then we can deny you permanent residency,
mhm,
right? At the point of your application. Uh, those are the things that you can control then. But when you just give out citizenship, then you have a problem of like, whoa, now we will have to create a two-tier citizenship where the rights of the native population are different to the rights of the immigrant population, and that becomes a problem then, because
mhm,
that's a mindset of discrimination that is going to be set into the system, and that can be taken advantage of differently.
mhm,
But if you don't give that from the get-go, then it's easier to maintain, like, okay, this is an equal society for the citizens of this country, not for the people who have permanent residency, who are foreign. There's
mhm.
no expectation from them to
A
involve
lot of
themselves
this, of
into.
course, is hangover from Commonwealth, and
Yeah, yeah,
one of the things
yeah,
that I sincerely believe, I put it into the manifesto, that on foreign policy, it really is time to wind down the Commonwealth. It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
exist in any meaningful
I've
sense.
said that for a while, because
It doesn't.
most of the countries in Commonwealth are anti-British as well. It
Yeah,
doesn't make sense.
and so the idea that this absolutely archaic, obsolete thing confers any rights on foreigners over some legacy institution that, ironically, is completely despised by the open borders liberals who run this country.
Hmm.
They hate the empire. They hate anything that's British in terms of heritage. But the one hangover from it is the one thing that they're absolutely dead keen to keep, because it's just another punishment beating they can give to the white working classes.
And this is my biggest criticism of Queen Elizabeth, right? Because she kept it going.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
her personal project. It's like she didn't involve herself into the politics at all, and she kept this thing going that crippled all the policies within politics, right? But uh, I don't know if people are ready to talk about this, but we're talking about our elves in Parliament, so they would be ready to talk about it, right?
Well,
And they
I
would dissolve Commonwealth on day one.
I was never a Republican as such, and I wouldn't have, getting rid of the monarchy was so low on my list of priorities. But I think the institution, along with the Church of England, has become so utterly degraded. You wonder what possible moral direction can bishops in the House of Lords give this country when they themselves have abandoned
Morality,
Christianity.
yeah. Yeah.
And in fact, most of the core tenets of wokery are on the seven deadly sins:
Mm,
pride, greed,
yeah,
lust, and the rest of it.
yeah.
It is a debased institution, and it doesn't even take care of British heritage. It undermines it.
Mm,
So, is there any longer a function of having it in our constitutional stack? And though we all like the pageantry of royal weddings and royal funerals and yada yada, who are these people?
mm,
What possible value does because King Charles is not he is not a defender of the faith. He is
mm.
not even a defender of the British people.
No,
He is
he's
very
not
much
even a
a
defender of his own
creature
family.
of the globalist establishment, and
Yeah.
we do not owe him our
Mm,
loyalty because he is disloyal to us. So,
mm.
what is the point of this institution? And so,
See,
I'm
uh,
running out of patience with the whole stack of it.
and the thing
Um,
is, like, when I said before, like, in older times, we would have barons who would like raise their own armies and challenge the king, or we
yeah,
could change the king to from one family to another. So we can't have that now. I don't see a Republican state as being any better, because it just creates kings that are going to be there for 4 years, and it's even worse. I'm more of a mind of, maybe people don't want to talk about this right now or ever, but I'm more of the mind on elective monarchy, right, which is based on criteria and not heritage and stuff.
Mm,
uh, not direct heritage, like it's not passed down through your lineage, but rather having candidates who
mm,
could be your monarchs, but they have like long lineage, within the native roots and stuff, right? Like 5 10, who can at least trace five parents in the ancestry from these lands and stuff, like have many criteria of competence and whatever,
I
and we
think
elect
that's an
these people.
interesting discussion for another time, because
Yeah,
I think we do need to have a long conversation
yeah,
about constitutional reform, but I think that's
yeah.
outside the
Yeah,
scope of
that's what I was
this
saying. Like this
particular.
conversation, like we need to have like a separate one for it,
Mm,
because I think so. That the reason why I say it is that way we can keep our traditions of
mhm,
everything, but not keep the family, right? Because that is a problem, and we can bring back that stage where you can oust a king, but
mm,
not having to have civil wars to be able to do that, right? But yeah, we've been talking a lot today, over two
indeed.
hours now.
Yes.
uh, 1500, more than 1500 people have been watching us, which is pretty good. Maybe if it was on YouTube it would have been more. Like I said, I'll hope to put this on YouTube straight away.
I wouldn't have minded if it was zero, because I enjoy talking to
Oh,
you, and
thank
I'd have
you. Yeah,
happily sat down and talked to you for 2 hours if nobody at all
but
had
that's
tuned
what
in. So
happens like when I talk with you. It's like it's exciting. So this is why, like, I would love to do more live streams with you, and maybe go from one each point in your manifesto,
sure.
and we can talk in detail about just that point and stuff like that. But anyways, yeah, thank you for coming on, and everyone go check out Pete's Twitter, his Substack. It's pretty interesting and stuff. Check out my Substack, please, if you want. Yeah. I put up a few things over there as well. And yeah, catch you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you,
Righty
Pete, for
ho.
coming.
Okay. Cheers, mate. Good to
Bye.
talk. Bye.